So I don't think there's any way I'm doing another 22 minutes of analysis, but I'll do at least some. I think that this is going to be a lot of like the same stuff. So let's get to it. We're kind of not really close enough to see anything with authority over here, especially with like the light in the background. Let's see if we get like a better picture here. The tennis balls are a smart idea on the stakes, by the way. I like the raised line too. That's very smart. Oof. Okay. This was kind of a good example of the main thing that you would do with this goofy footed stance here. Was like mostly you're trying to catch a hand block or you're trying to step around with a long step and kind of switch your shoulders positioning inside of their cone of attack in hopes that they like essentially whiff their shot, right? So I think we're maybe like a little bit close to use this. I'm not a fan of this stance in general, but that's basically what it's used for. I think it looked more like when we kind of wanted to come in and use that stance, we're using it in kind of like an unconfident way where like the timing of it was a little bit stilted. Where we're like, okay, I got hit, and then I'm gonna switch the stance up. That's something you got to do with like a little bit more kind of authority. It looks like the person on the right just kept chopping from max range, and the fighter on the left kind of couldn't get that pacing correct. And that was just like we kind of walked up. I didn't like this like two-piece shuffle here. We just ended up too close when we took our we did like a two-piece forward shuffle there, paused looking to see like what we need to do, and then did a third little step, and by then we were just like kind of too close. Third step and then hit, and we just kind of got one shot for it. It's really important in single sword to maintain a good distance between the two fighters, because like you don't have the leeway of the shield to be able to cover you. So if you get too close, you are definitely going to get hit. So maintaining that range really carefully is absolutely critical. That's just getting too close and kind of getting one shot for it. There's a good lateral movement for this fighter. You can see how they kind of just stepped to their left and threw in a quick snipe right there. And the fighter closest to us just did not adjust off that center line. So you really have to pay careful attention to when people adjust like that laterally in single sword. Because like with your shield, you can kind of lean or cheat the angle a little bit to cover yourself. With single sword, you cannot. You spiral out of position really quickly, and you end up not being in a space where you can kind of store power and throw back at people. So you have to really watch that. All right, this is main thing here. I think is this is you can't. It's hard to see, but the sword is here. This is a vertical guard, which is a non-guard, as we've discussed before. So we're kind of too close here with a non-guard. We need preferably a sloped guard like this that kind of covers our arm and our shoulder and closes off the whole top quadrant. So this is just not a mistake that you can make. So it looks like we just got hand blocked, hit in the arm, and then slotted for it to the body. This is good patience by Aldrich because we've got this pointed sword stance, which basically communicates like, hey, I'm going to stab you. So I like how Aldrich is moving kind of left and right to try to get away from like the point of the sword. It's a smart way to handle this. You can also like blade beat to get the sword like out of the way. Okay, we're getting a little too close. See, we got stabbed there. And I think just traded on the body because we got too close. So you really, when someone points their sword at you like this, you really have to do a lot of work to get it out of the way. I think from this stance here, with the sword out wide, I would try to blade beat across this way and then slot into this arm so that I can make sure that their follow-up does not count and would be late. I think we've got some non-guards here as well with our swords up pretty high. And I think on some level we are respecting that too much. We've got all of this body territory that we can swing at. I think that you could just like stutter to get them to throw since they're preloaded so hard, and maybe drop across and hit them in the body, especially if you've got like a solid hand block. I don't know why. Maybe cut in early, but this fighter kind of has their hand behind their back, so maybe the offhand was hit before the video started. What you would do is you just kind of like stutter high to get their hand guard up high, and then pop them in the body, and then just cover as much of the angle as you can with your forearm. Well, it's your boy and your other boy. Mr. Mang is nagging me to take him outside, but he is a very good boy. This is his only job. This is how he contributes to the household with his cuteness. So, unfortunately, he has to clock in. He's the only dog with a job. Aside from, like, search and rescue jobs, but... Okay, my dog has a job, and I'm very proud of him. How dare you? Just because he's not a search and rescue dog or a service dog or emotional support dog doesn't mean that he's not a valuable contributor to society. He's a stream mascot and a very dignified young lad. I am gonna try to, yes, truly a professional boy. He's tolerating me so well right now. All right, baby boy. I gotta finish our job, okay? All right, let's roll. Okay. Good range control on the fighter on the right. We got the fighter on the left is like doing some big sweeps to try to draw their hand low. I'm interested in seeing on how they capitalize on it. But the fighter on the right is doing a good job of kind of like staying back and not falling for it. I think what was good there is the fighter on the left did a couple of like low sweeps in a row to draw the hand down before going high. And it shows me that they're like thinking about what they're doing and not trying to like fly by the seat of their pants or anything. Okay, so what I want to see for the fighter on the left is our guard is kind of staying low down here. When they get in close, this is basically a low quadrant guard. So we talked about the hand matching guard priorities, right? But it's single sword that they're non-hand matching. They're different. They look like this, right? Messing up my buttons. So for hand matching, the quadrants were 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 single sword, non-hand matching. They're here, 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 right? So these are the most likely things to come, because if you hold them at the appropriate range, this is all people can reach without driving forward really low and overextending, right? Because we talked about how the range is shaped like a sphere. And to hit these quadrants, you have to go like much lower and much closer, which is kind of easier to read. So they end up being like very committal knockout style punches, right? So we don't want to have our guard down here. It's okay to relax it down here when you know that you're out of reach, but really what we want our guard is more like high up in this area here with our sword kind of slanted across like this, so that we're blocking shots that are going to come from the down and come from diagonally, and to a lesser extent to the side. It's a high quadrant, right? Because if we have our sword sloped and high like this, we cover just more things. But we're kind of just hanging out in this low guard position, and this is just not covering what we need to cover. This is covering like the last thing, the least likely thing to happen at range. So that's what when people say like, oh, your hands are too low, that's what they mean. I just think it's not very helpful to say your hands are too low, raise your hands up. It's like, fucking why, Tato? Explain why my hand should be higher. So that's the explanation for why your hand should be a little bit higher in single sword. That's a pretty good double fake. That was also like kind of the time to use a fake too, because the fighter in the blue and white definitely had the fighter in the green defensive. So that's exactly the time was like, okay, it's time to fake. Okay, so this guard, this is a nice vertical boy here. We know that we want that diagonal house guard. I think the fighter, we're both kind of doing this here, right? We've got this vertical sword here. And then the issue is that this sword, this is obviously a newer player because they're not even wearing garb, but it just kind of want to just illustrate the point that if you have this sword in the middle here, this doesn't cover anything, right? So we can go in this way, we can go in this way, we can go in this way. I think this is smart for a new player because the sword is directly in front of their face, and as a new player, you're very likely to get hit in the face a lot, so at least that's covered. But like, we don't have any coverage here. We need to move our hand left or right, and we want to slope that guard. Gave him a surprising amount of trouble for a new fighter. See if we get the volume up a little bit. Sleeping retreat. So kind of same thing. I just kind of taking advantage of that vertical guard, going side to side. It really helps to vary the quadrants that you swing at, because as their guard kind of switches from side to side, it ends up kind of like rattling apart, and they can't like make it back to the other side in time. So that was smart use of it. You always want to mix up your targeting to the extent that you can. I think another thing that's important when you're fighting someone who's like clearly very new is I've seen a lot of really good fighters lose this way. I've seen recent like losses of warlords to basically new fighters. Is you want to understand that like counter striking is the first thing that new fighters do. They will swing at any opening that you give them. Right? They're just going to swing at them because defense is much harder than swinging, and you can't win if you don't swing, right? So the smartest thing for a new player to do, just swing at any opening that you see, right? You get a lot of random success that way. So for really new fighters, what I like to do is stutter, get them to swing, catch the block, because they're probably not going to be able to like pull their weapon back in time with coordination to be able to swing at me again very quickly, so it would likely be out of time, and then kill them on the riposte. So it's stutter, block, riposte, and kill them. And you have to have a decent to mid-level block strike to be able to do that. It really doesn't take much, but like that's a point where a block strike is really important for just like eliminating losses to people that you should not be losing to, because it's just hard to counter-strike someone who doesn't really have it in their mind to like protect themselves. It's like just trying to hit you, right? So when I see like a no guard person holding their sword in a way that's like not really a great guard, I think to myself, oh shit, this is the most dangerous person in the tournament. They're new and they're going to swing at me no matter what I do. I need to stutter, block, and kill them on the row post. It's a good two-piece. Had a good two-piece. Had a pretty good range control. It looks like that stab missed.
This is Regulus on the left. He did great last night in the Pokemon battle. And in the red fight,
I like that the range that these two people are keeping. They're very in and out, and I think that that is like about as correct as you can get. I think that maybe that stab was a bit ambitious. It's from a little bit too far away. So I don't like to hang out. I think the main issue that we had here was we kind of hung out in a stab position for a beat or two before we stabbed. Your stabs should be super sudden if you're planning on using it. Also, hand match situations are tough to stab people in because of the way that people's torsos are oriented. If we're both sword foot forward here, it means that the line of this person's shoulders, they're a little bit square, but typically the line of their shoulders is kind of like slanted like this and open, right? And there's like this open space up here between them. But what happens on stabs a lot of the time is that stabs don't go straight forward. They kind of go straight for a while, and then they arc in as you kind of hit that terminal point. And then to extend your stab further, you turn. So in a hand-matched scenario, much of the time, if you stab this way, and they kind of back out, or you're not as close as you need to be, this will miss. But the other way that you can stab, like a hook stab, will kind of fly off in the wrong direction. But another way that you can stab, I don't have my sword, I got a pin. So like a hook stab, I guess a hand match person, a lot of the time it will miss because it'll cross off this way. You could do a reverse hook stab where your palm is up and you stab in this way, like this, and it'll be perpendicular to their torso if you must stab in a hand match scenario. I don't think it's like optimal by any means, but a lot of people don't think about that reverse hook stab as an option, and it's quite nice for that situation. I don't know if like reverse hook stab is the actual name for it. I just made that up because I needed a name to differentiate it in my head. It probably has like a real HEMA name, but I'm not a weeb, so I'm a little bit of a weeb, a little bit. I shouldn't lie on stream. Video is forever. The internet is forever. We don't HEMA weeb here. I think I have friends that are in HEMA. I'm joking. They're just very particular about the names of attacks. And I like to just be like, hey man, it's a fucking bonk, dude. It's a bonk or a rap or whatever. It's not like a Einschnauzer or something. It's just not for me. Reverse hook stab it is. All right, let's go back. Name seems interesting. I definitely want to give it a try. I think that this was a fight that was like not recorded and we're just discussing it, so we're not going to worry about it. Okay. Little too close. Very fancy. That was weird. Now, I don't like this. I just want to call this out. This is probably, I don't know this person, and this is probably an adrenaline thing. that if you take the time to talk to your opponent to adjudicate shots, you want to give him a second to settle back into the fight. It looks like the guy on the left like said something real quick and then attacked their opponent immediately after like finishing their sentence and didn't give their opponent any time to kind of process. Like it was right there. Don't do that. If you have to communicate verbally, just give people a second to listen to you, because a lot of the times people are like not expecting you to talk, so they're not listening yet. So, and then you kind of turn like the listening mode for that kind of communication like on and off. So just give them a second to settle back in if you have to communicate verbally to adjudicate something. Don't just jump them. It's very distracting. Especially sometimes people have like auditory processing stuff, like I kind of do, because I have to think about everything I hear because of my cochlear implant. So I need like the extra second to process. Okay, this is just too close. And we tried to outblock strike somebody with hands that were a little bit too close. And our hands were a little bit too low, right? So we're kind of like daring them to come in. And we're thinking, okay, I'm going to outspeed you and block you out and hit you. And we just didn't end up kind of doing that. And we just snuck in a shot there. So you got to stay back and away from people and keep your hands at that top quadrant height. Hold them there. Nicely done. I had the same issue again. That was a good shot. This was... I think this is another new player, and I think the issue that they're having right now is when they're attacking, they're kind of just trying to lay their sword on the opponent for too long of a period of time, and it's giving the fighter on the right, who's a little bit more experienced, a lot of time to kind of pick their shot, because the fighter on the left sword is kind of freezing in place post-shot. That's a very common error that new people kind of make, and even like not new people. I think that came up in the reviews that I did for Alaska, where there was a fighter who was like trying to lay the sword on the opponent, and usually what they're trying to do is like pause the sword on the opponent's body to like make it more obvious that they were hit for like the opponent and the Reeves and stuff like that, and it just doesn't work that way. What can happen is like the opponent that you lay the sword on, it's going to take a bunch of extra shots, and it confuse the Reeves, and they won't even remember that your sword was there in the first place. But basically, like after you throw, you need to get your sword back into a defensive position, whether you think you have hit them or not, immediately every time. So like optimally, when you're fighting, you should be fighting by never assuming that your opponent is dead, and being pleasantly surprised when they call dead is like, I think, peak fighting, basically. I think this is another case where we got this fighter who's kind of doing a lot of flourishes to fake out their opponent. But this looks like a day one fighter in no garb. They're not going to try to block you. You need to stutter to get them to swing at you, block, and strike. Riposte, as we discussed with the previous new fighter. Also, kudos to those new fighters for entering tournaments like on their first day. And also, I like that they allowed them to play even though they didn't have garb. So you always like to see it. That might be like a formative experience for someone that motivates them to stick with fighting. So that was really solid. Okay. This is kind of what I'm talking about, where, you know how we talked about hand matched, that hip is shot 2. Both these guys kind of faked it shot 1 and then threw shot 2 after that at pretty much exactly the same time. So it's like upward pump and then hip wrap. So they got the priorities of it right, but they didn't really figure out like whose turn it was to throw, right? So I think this is probably a case of like trying to engage and kill the other guy too fast. You want to take your time to try to figure out like what your opponent wants to do. That was good footwork. You got to take the time to figure out like what your opponent wants and what they want to do, and then kind of capitalize on that. But you got to take a second, especially like in single sword. You don't have any room for mistakes, so you have to be extra patient. Whereas like Florentine, a lot of the time people are so poor at Florentine that like you can be a little bit more aggressive and kind of rattle their guard apart. With board, you have so much extra defense that you don't have to be completely correct in reading your opponent's intent all the time, because you have so much passive coverage from like this huge plane of defense that you've got. With single sword, you have no room for error, no backup plans. Like you have to know exactly what your opponent is going to do to be able to capitalize on it, and that's going to take like it only takes like 5-10 seconds, 20, 30 tops, right? But just be generous with yourself and give yourself that 15 seconds to just try to figure out what your opponent wants to do. Like, what are they stuttering at? How are they moving? Do they look like they want to swing? Do they look like they want to block? Do they look like they want to counter strike or something like that? Just be generous with yourself and give yourself the extra 15 seconds in single sword. I think it's kind of the same thing. We got better needling here, so that's good. There's like lots of in and out. A lot of these swings that I'm seeing, like just thematically, not necessarily just with these two, but one thing that you need to think about in single sword is when you swing, a lot of the times that your sword ends up in a defensive position afterwards, right? But a lot of these swings don't seem to end that way. Like this is not a guard that we just swung at. This is not a guard that we just swung. Right? So a lot of the times I think about single sword where I'm like swinging into some sort of defensive position so that I have that extra coverage. And more importantly, the opponent has like a path back to me that is clear enough that I can read it and expect it. And that makes me react kind of faster to it, right? So if I close off one quadrant by swinging up high this way, it makes them want to kind of swing around towards my chest. And if I know that, it's very quick for me to react and put my hand over to block, right? So you want to kind of think about it like, how can I swing such that my sword ends up in a defensive position? It's very important for Florentine too, but it's like a little bit more critical for single sword. That's like not just these two. That's like everyone in this tournament so far, or most people. And we're kind of over-relying, like, on our hand blocks a little bit. Like, you only get one. So we want to try to conserve that resource to the best of your ability. This is better. Yes. Okay. This was, like, more patient. Good lateral movement. And then we got a good snipe. I think basically what happened here is, I think we've talked about this person's name, but I forget. But they kind of moved off laterally and found a good snipe. And basically because they readjusted this lateral position, this hand block was not in the right space to block just because his opponent moved laterally, right? So you want to make sure that you're taking the time to adjust that position enough that your opponent can make some mistakes. Is that cord? Okay. On the left, you want to make sure that you're making enough adjustment that your opponent can make some mistakes. And I think that the situation also highlights like how precise single sword is with positioning too. Because it's just a very minor positioning error, and it opened up a chest for, I think, Cord to just slot that chest. Just straight in. It's a great shot. It seems like most of these people are more focused on seizing the initiative and killing with speed rather than playing the game. Feels very common for fighters in their first few years. Yeah, I think it's like, I think that that's like an excellent point. If you want to drop your LARP name in the chat, I think that that's an astute point. It would be good to know who you are. But I think basically what happens is like counter-striking is kind of the meta because you have to. It's an order of magnitude harder to deal with counter-striking than it is to do it, right? And single sword requires a lot of defensive cultivation where you have to dump a lot of time into block strike to be able to like protect yourself very well, but you don't have to make that kind of investment with single sword. So I think that that may be kind of like a piece with it. I think that most Belegarth fighters, culturally, from my understanding, like the main thing is field games. So everyone is like very well practiced with combos, and that's very evident with the sword and board that we watched, where people are like doing like all these dark sides and cool fakes and lateral movement and stuff. And single sword just isn't something that you would take onto the field, onto a field game, unless you're like kind of a psychopath, right? So I think it has to do with that delineation. And I think conversely in Amtgard, like tournaments are basically the main thing for fighters, right? Like the field games are class games, but they're just, I don't know, they don't have the same kind of like skill cultivating appeal, I think, as like the tournaments do. So I think that you tend to see a lot more like sword based fundamentals because of that reason, because like the getting warlord is essentially like our focus. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's just like, hey, there are things that you want to take from every game. I am very fucking sick of single sword, being an Amtgarder for 25 years, so I am very excited to go do some like full combo work with cross gamers next year, because that just seems like they're really cultivating some interesting stuff. Also, hey Javier, it's nice to see you. Fart. Okay, I think main point of optimization, I think we are trying to reach too far here. Like, this is gonna slow down your ability to recover defensively if you extend too far. Hey, Relic. So if you stretch this far out, it's just tough to pull your torso back to get back into a neutral position. It's okay to just get a little bit closer and keep like an upright back. And then it's just as fast with a little practice to step back with your feet instead of trying to like pull your torso back up straight. I think that this is something that you can do and get away with in sword and board. But I think in single sword, it's going to basically throw, I want to say like, not too much force, but like too much faith into your sword to like hit that mark. But if they block it, right, it's just very easy to get sniped in the arm. Or if they block it and close and you misjudge the distance, it's really hard to get out of this position to push backwards. So I might try to spend a little bit of time just taking a little step forward with your strike and then a little step back when you want to reach forward like this. Whoops, I dropped all my shit again. I hate that. The minimize everything keyboard shortcut is really cool, close to my drawing shortcut. So sometimes I just like minimize everything. But anyway, so like I don't want to say, I think it's really unhelpful when you see an issue like this and you say stop reaching or stop punching, because that doesn't fucking mean anything, right? And it also doesn't give them a counter plan to help them start building good fighting. So what I would say instead to Fert here is I want you to practice with an upright back, small step forward, throw, small step back. And just keep doing that until it's natural for your long-range sniping game instead of like reaching forward really far like this. That's an addition, an optimization that I would recommend. I think we've also got like too many shots kind of coming from the same direction as well. That can work, but you need to take lateral steps to adjust the targets and trajectory when you do that. Okay, so for this situation, hand matched, I think one thing to add for it is you want to get some horizontal chops where, like, I'm going to trace the path of the tip of the sword, but where the tip of the sword comes down and then sweeps across horizontally like that. And the nice part about that is when you chop horizontally, your hand ends in a high position, and all you need to do to turn it into a top quadrant guard is rotate your hand up a little bit and then kind of pull it back, right? So it's like one of those attacks that's like instantly creates some safety and defense for you. A hand match scenario, horizontal chop. It's easy. And you're trying to do like a downward diagonal, and unfortunately, like the terminal point of that downward diagonal shot, it's just a non-guard, so I think that was why you got countered there.
They still look like they're like Jedi.
I think that straight up and down, in and out posture change will do a lot of help. It will give you a lot of help for these kinds of situations. For people who are stabbing,
Like Jedi.
that's a good stab hand matched. I look like it may have slid off. I'm not super sure. I think maybe it slid. But this is one of the reasons why you really want to make sure that you're not engaging straight on in single sword. A little bit of preemptive lateral movement does a lot to keep you from getting stabbed. That's a good drive. I like the 2 shots to the same spot and then swinging out around. That's good. I think the variety is good with your right hand. I think it's just like a matter of increasing variety with your left hand. And I think that this was really good. This whole set right here, this whole fight was really good range control and keeping them at absolute max range until they kind of made a mistake. I think it also prevented you from getting stabbed again. It looks like they kind of got desperate and you read the hand block and punished them for it, so that was really good. I think the main thing for the fighter in black is like they just didn't make any kind of range or positioning adjustments while you kind of picked apart at them. They circled the tiniest bit, but they just didn't really use a lot of footwork until they decided to rush you down and say, okay, like, it's go time. I'm fucking sick of this. I'm coming in. I think any kind of movement to try to establish control, like cuts to the right or left, would have been big and try to take that range and timing back a little bit.
Is that good?
Actually, it looks like he got that hit through. I think is what Frick may have been calling.
20.
I think it was 1-1.
Yeah, but the guy with the green sword looks like a 6.
It looked like he didn't know where their guard should be. The hand moved a lot, and not all of it was feigning.
Yay, Florida.
Yeah, it looks like feigning to me, I think. Maybe not. Maybe fainting is not the right word, but it's more like, I guess there's no delineation in concept, but a lot of the time you can do like it's not really like a feint, but it's like just a gesticulation or impression that you want to go for a certain quadrant just to like draw their attention to it. I feel like a feint would have to be like close enough that you're actually threatening, and you're right, like they're not, right? But still like gesturing towards the spot that you want so that you can go somewhere else, like on the outside, in my opinion, is like still better than like a totally static hand most of the time, because like at least you're communicating some kind of misdirection. I think you're technically right though. They're not feints. It's like an outside impression of the misdirection, essentially, more so than like an actual feint. What was this one? I think we held our range pretty well here. I think this is like, just kind of too many crosses and too many the same shot repeating. You need the fighter on the left needs to mix it up a little bit. I think like basically the fighter on the right here did precisely the right thing, where I think this fighter basically throws a cross 3 times in a row, and this fighter on the right kind of observes that and says like, okay, I'm gonna catch this with my hand block and then hit you for it, and that's pretty much exactly what we saw. It's like, okay, I'll probably cross again with that hand, and just caught it. So you could do the same thing twice in a row, but you can't do the same thing 3 times in a row, in my opinion. Unless you're like really in the mix and you're trying to give them the no mix-up. Ooh, that's really good. You can see like when they're kind of going high here. And what I really liked about this is it was like the same crossing shot, but they just dropped it down a little bit to hit the hip. And that was great. A great adjustment. And got them a very clean hit. So I think it's right here. Now, one more. It's the same shot. Varied the height a little bit. And then sometimes that's like one of the most dangerous things that you can do. Where you're like, you just change the level a little bit so that their guard is essentially like outdated and they get hit for it. That was like, again, it was the same shot, but it had some lateral shimmies to it. I think I may have backed up too far. I think it's right here. Yep. So it's like, we get into this position right here, and we go like, let me do this a little faster. We go like left, right, left, right. And then as we close in, and it just confuses him on the direction and position that he's going to swing from. And he got that same shot in. So that's like a really good way of like of showing that there are multiple parameters that you can beat someone on. It doesn't always have to be like you're targeting, where you change what quadrant you're swinging at or what shot you're throwing. Sometimes it's like level change, rhythm changes, lateral changes. And they're small, but they add up, and they're very powerful. So a lot of great work by that fighter. I would still like to see the shot variety increase, but they're doing some very smart things.
These two practice together each week. I missed the hug or fight or whatever it was. Ready, set, go.
Okay, so it looks like, I know we've said their name. I don't know if it was Vaughn. I forget. But it looks like Aldrich lined up too close. This is a really common issue that people can have, where if you have someone who has a very explosive forward lunge, it's really easy to accidentally underestimate that. I think that's one reason why you should start in a tournament further away from the person than you think that they should, because you never know when someone's going to have like really explosive lunges that's going to go further than you think. I feel like body size is not even a great predictor of that. Cord, yes, thank you. You already told me that. It's cord. I think my brain is like a hash map, and I already know a chord, so I'm like, that can't be chord 2, so my brain is just like discarding it. This is, I can't tell what this win is, because I think it looked like Ferk got in first, I think. But this is too fast to approach somebody. Like, you got to slow down and feel them out a little bit. You can't just like come in and wail on them. Like most, especially in single sword, like in sword and board, you can have some like really good trick shots that'll really fuck people up if you just don't give them any time to think about it. But with single sword, like the response is, oh no, I don't know what's happening. What am I gonna do? I'm gonna hit them in the body because it's easy, because there's no shield. right? So you have to spend a little bit more time creating some misdirection. Here it is just too fast. I think it looked like Furt just kind of sniped him out. I'm going to see if we're going to do the same thing. Okay. It looked like we slowed it down a little bit. I think it's 1-1 or simul. Okay. I think this was maybe Furt getting a little bit tired and just not backing up. Like, this fighter on set 1 was clearly like, I'm coming for you. I'm going to run in. I'm going to keep swinging. And it felt like we just didn't give him enough ground for that. Like, good lateral here. It's just like a precision error or something like that, where we got like a little snipe in on the forearm or something. But it looks like here, I think it was perhaps because, I can't say it with complete authority, but I think that maybe this low extended position here that we were talking about before is making it too hard to back out or move laterally to kind of counter this really fast approach. So I think that's one time when you would need like a very straight posture, is when you need lots and lots of directional changes to account for someone's very aggressive approach. No problem. No problem. Thanks for tuning in and listening. I appreciate it. It's kind of the same thing, where we're not the same thing as last fight, but like a common thing, where we're like trying to just attack at the same time as like a newer fighter, and you can even see that we're like trying to duck out of the way after we swing, instead of like creating defense with the end position of our attack in single sword. So we're trying to like swing and duck, swing and duck, swing and duck from this fighter in the purple over here. And it's like, man, like you can just like throw flat and keep your hand in the way of their hand and trap them. There's not a lot of like dodging in foam fighting. Like, you can't really rely on like cool spot dodges and stuff like Smash. Like, you really have to block or step backwards is like all the fancier your defense usually gets. It's good range on that lunge. So if we're holding like a stab, I'm gonna stab you position. That was really good. Okay, so we had 2 stabs, right? We had 2 failed stabs, and they weren't so deep that they were committal, right? Like, we kind of bounced up on our back foot, but we recovered into a decent stance after that initial press. So that's good. And then we did a second one, and then we did a fake on the third one into some crossing, right? I think it's here. Now, one more. And you can kind of see that's the missed stab. And you can see how they dropped their sword a little bit and then crossed over. And that is perfect use of context. Like, you just take the move that you used last time and you riff off it. If it doesn't hit them, just riff off the last shot and see what else you can open up. Perfect. Okay. At that time, we got jumped a little bit. A lot of the time, you have to watch for fighters after you beat them. You gotta keep a little bit of distance and make sure that they're not gonna try to like jump you to even the score really quickly. Fine box. So I like the outside impressions. They're kind of like wove in very carefully. You can see how they took like 4 or 5 different like little strange things and then kind of like wormed their way in and just like threw flat to the body. I think that's kind of a good thing that the fighter on the right could have done. It's like maybe after the first impression or two on the outside, to use a blade beat to kind of disrupt their timing and to try to establish some control over the fight. It's a very safe way of like kind of just messing with their game plan. I was just like, we let him get too close here and try to like outread him and just missed our hand block.
They've been fighting for a while. I'm not sure who's up, who's down. 1-1. Thank you, Harold.
Good chops. I think I can go to 11, but my prednisone is kicking in. So I'm running out of things to say. Let's see what we've got. Yeah, I think this is kind of the same fighter that we saw that was doing like very, very aggressive approaches. And I think it looks like for this first round, Cord wasn't ready for that. Let's see if he adjusts. He just adjusted with like a quick snipe to the body. So I think that was like this fighter back here over closing. If you over close in single sword, you essentially present too many targets to your opponent, and it's just too hard to react with the correct option. I feel like Cord has really fast hands in this tournament, and Fox has really fast hands in this tournament. So I feel like I would want to keep those two at range, and especially like at a height advantage, and not try to get so close.
We live in Florida. Hey, Rumi, do you want to drive 12 hours to sword fight each other? Awesome, I'd love to.
They threw one light. That was a good call. Good call by Cord. That's one.
That's 2. Sorry, you guys can.
That's 2. I thought that was 2. Okay, I liked what this fighter was doing, where he was using kind of like outside impressions by kind of moving his sword out around this way, but then swung from this hand. Sorry, this is the worst arrow in the world, right? So he kind of was like waving out here a little bit and then swung across. That's what I mean by impression of intent on the outside. And that looked really good. It seemed like it just didn't pan out for him because I think his opponent has a little bit faster hands. An outside fake. Let's see what we do. I went like, we had a good outside fake from this fighter. I want to see like outside fake it across or something. They're just kind of gun shy on it, or didn't like read, because it felt like it put this person's sword hand over here to block this way, like if this was their arm and this was the sword here. So yeah, I feel like that outside feint put them here. I want to see them do that and throw to the arm across. There's another. I think this fighter here is like doing some really good reconnaissance, but then just not leveraging it, or is like not confident in it, right? Like you got the cue that you needed, you got the effect that your feint was going to have on your opponent, but you kind of like waited too long to use it, and maybe your opponent realized that like, okay, like he's got like a feint ready for me, So I'm going to counter strike instead, and gave him kind of some time to change his game plan.
Special signal with his hands when it's in between.
Like when you do like a feint and it pulls your opponent's guard in a certain position, you gotta like not give them the time to think about what they have shown you. You gotta just like, you can wait a beat, or you can store it for later and do something else, but you gotta try to use it quick. That was good. Okay, I think I can make it. Prednisone's kicking in. I'm interested in seeing how this goes because it seems like Cord has some really fast fundamentals, and we've got some very threatening goofiness from this guy over here with just like kind of awkward angles and stuff. I don't know what the call was there.
Talon, I have a case of water at my trailer.
I think maybe it looked like Cord got hit in the hip on shot 1 and tried to take 2 arms. It was maybe calling himself late. Let's see what that. Yeah, that's what happened. You can see that the point was over here. That was good adjudication by Cord. Very good job of holding range. Good shot. Good shot. What was that? This guy just like a good low. That was good. It's just like a good low horizontal chop. Range. I only saw the shot on Cord. It looks like they're not sure about the other guy. And Cord's like declaring his body. I think they're calling it a simul. I'll try to snooze. Snooze our ads a bit because I think we can get through the rest of this. I think we're almost done. I feel like we're trying to beat people on footwork and positioning, where we're hanging around the outside until we feel like we've got a good opportunity to say like, hey, it's go time, and then we're trying to fly in and just beat them to the punch. And I'm just not seeing the sword defense that I want to see. I'm not seeing like an attempt to draw an attack and block it to try to create like an advantage. It seems like we're trying to outspeed people on the inside as though we were basically fighting like a sword and board bracket without our shield, like we forgot it or something mutually. So I definitely want to see like, I think the main defensive thing that I want to see is when you swing, you leave the sword in the path where it creates some defense for you. It's like a huge and single sword, especially in hand matching, right? Like just the horizontal chops are phenomenal. Rising chops where your hand ends in a high position can protect a lot for you. I think those are the main things. This is a great fight and really exciting to watch because both of these fighters have like really fast footwork, but I feel like we're missing out like on the defense. It looked like his own sword got hit into his face.
You're twitching, bro. Your eye is doing something. Yay, Harold. Good job, Mom.
No, don't be sorry. Shit happens. We're out here playing six.
I feel like got hit in the face and stopped or something. No, okay, we're back in. Maybe just like a quick break. I think this must have cut in late because it looks like we're already down a hand here. This is good patience, but we're not really like impressing anything right now, right? We're just doing like a little bit of mutual circling back and forth, and we've got like kind of this long cross back over here, but we haven't taken the time to figure out like, do they want to counter strike or what? It looks like we tried to surprise them with our hand speed, and to an extent, it looks like it worked. I like the variance here. It looked like we had this cross, and then we also, after this cross, we had like an upward cut that looks like it found its way home. So that was good. I think he's calling a shot late too. So it's 1-1.
Thank you.
Alright, good blade beat. Let's do something a little bit different. That's good. What was the ending here? Yeah, it looked like this is kind of the issue with this vertical guard, where it looks like we snapped up into whoops. When we came back to guard, we're in this vertical position here, and it's just easy for us to kind of drop our sword in here. It's one of the reasons that you really want to build in that sloped guard from the top, because it's vertical guard. It's just a non-guard. Like it only really covers like one very precise point, whereas that slanted guard covers like lots of different angles. So I think that was the main issue here, and we just jumped them on a. Essentially, like, we identified an imperfection in their stance and kind of jumped on it. We got a cord. He's good stuttering. This was like a simultaneous exchange of offhands, I think. I think they're trying to decide if maybe Purple Tunic's outside shot was like a shoulder wrap or something like that. This is kind of like that was a fight that was like kind of an old-timey Western standoff where we just kind of got close and then tried to just chop each other's offhands up, which is like my least favorite part of single sword. That was too close. That was much too close. Like you can see Purple Tunic kind of just chopped in very, very quickly with a very short shot path. It was just too close. And I got That was good. Same thing, I think. Yeah, I think Cord is just lining up too close in single sword, and it's opening up some snipes. I think it's like, I think the issue could be like Cord is very fast, right? Like that much is very obvious. Like I have a lot of respect for their hand speed, and it's probably like one of the best people in this video. But you can't, I feel like hand speed never gets so fast in these games that it like the end brackets of a tournament that you can rely on it in single sword anymore. You can rely on your hand speed in sword and board and Florentine because you have like a second piece of equipment to back you up and create some defensive coverage. But single sword just doesn't have that privilege to it, right? So you have to start from a little bit further back. I was kind of like disappointed to see that it looked like in fight 1 of this, Cord was using some stutters on the outside to try to like to try to just get some information from their opponent, but like didn't kind of persist with that research and instead kind of took it to like a hand speed game. And a hand speed game, so like when you have it, it's great and it feels very good to win with it, but it tops out very early as like a strategy. I know that because that was my thing forever, because it just feels good to be fast and strong and powerful, but this just doesn't work. It isn't really compatible with single sword, unfortunately. It's good to see everyone had a really good attitude about the tournament too. It was really great. That was really fun to watch. So everybody's go Russia. That's great. Alright, that seems like it's the show. Oh, wow. Lots of emotion there. That's awesome. I like how the tournaments are separate in Belegarth and are kind of like totally separate ordeals. Because in Amtgard, it's like, it's really just like one bracket. So it's like, okay, cool, I won single sword, now I've got like 4 fucking more to go. So it's like not like a big event like that. I like how Belegarth does that. Alright, we made it. Thanks everybody for tuning in and watching. That was really fun and really made me want to like try this next year. That looked like a great time and everybody was really positive about it. So that was awesome. Alright, I'm going to sign off for the night. I'm going to take 2 weeks off. I'm doing some traveling, and then I've got some other stuff coming down the pipe. I had DeVry submit some footage that he wants me to go over that are just spars. I just want to remind people that anybody is welcome to do that at any time. Tournament footage doesn't get posted nearly as often as I would like, so it can sometimes be hard to find. So if you just like are doing some sparring with your friends with some first to tens, and you want me to go over it on stream, like you see that the tempo is, you know, respectful and positive, you are more than welcome to hit me up on Facebook, or there's a Discord link at the bottom of the Twitch that you're welcome to use. If you haven't dropped me a follow yet and you've watched all this time, drop me a follow, and that's it. So I've got to get my dog out and get to bed. I got to lift at 6 in the morning, and I'm going to be pretty wiped out for it. So I will catch you guys in the next one. Everybody have a safe and happy holiday. I'll see you in a couple weeks.